Thanks for having me, AMEC, and it's really great to see so many familiar faces, and I've met a lot of new people. One, it's just really great to be in the same room with all of you. This presentations we've seen so far have all been revolved around what we can do now. And I'm gonna take you on a little journey of what's coming and what can we do now to influence what we're all going to be impacted with, which is how do we use generative AI as an enterprise or as an agency to drive orchestrated intelligence. So like many of you, I've been in the lab with my team trying to figure out what is possible beyond what we're doing today. And the question isn't whether enterprise AI is possible, because many of us are using a range of tools to be able to support our clients' needs and our agency needs or our in-house needs. It's how fast can you and your companies reorient your approach? And this is the most important piece, because every 3 months we have to reorient our approach. Every 3 months there's something new that AI can do. But how fast can you think about what's coming so that you can prepare? And the great thing is you've done a lot of this already. If you're using a tool like Meltwater or Talkwalker or Cision or Inclusive, all of these tools require some sort of framework. You have to provide intelligence into the tool to get intelligence out of the tool. So what we'll cover today is 4 areas: the gap, where AI is and where it needs to go and how we're gonna be part of that; orchestrated intelligence, a new operating model powered by Model Context Protocol, or MCP; the layer nobody's building. We'll talk about who's building it and how it's gonna come together; and then what changes, how we move from analysts or a team of analysts to a team of intelligence specialists or intelligence strategists. People will still do some level of analysis, but the AI is going to do most of that. Your job is to be a holistic thinker and understand, what do I do with this information now? How does it impact the business? What questions are being asked and why? And how do I translate that into strategy or impact? So the problem, we have a range of powerful tools in this room, and some people that couldn't make it to the event. But they're disconnected, and they always have been, right? So people are building powerful, purpose-built tools to do a range of very important things, whether it's brand intelligence, disinformation, short-form video analysis, survey-based research, audience insight. There is a need for every one of these tools, and they were built for a reason. However, we're moving into an era where, just like every other department in an organization, these tools can now connect through the power of AI, and in the coming months, in the power of MCP, which is making this process a lot cheaper. This has always been the problem with the teams I've managed and the teams you guys have managed, is there's a point in time where intelligence sort of dies. You have data, you gather, it's super in the moment, you have reporting, you have presentations, and then you get to the meeting, you present it, and everyone loves the insights. And then it's a couple weeks later, and it's like, okay, now what do we decide? Oh, the story has changed. Oh, there's a new topic being discussed. I have to go rebuild the report. So the next leap isn't about giving everyone a co-pilot, although they're super powerful. It's building an intelligence layer that connects the entire enterprise about what's happening in the moment. Going from just pulling the data and compiling the analysis and presenting the insight that can take days or weeks, depending on how complex the ask is from the client, reporting that monthly or reporting that quarterly, to moving to reporting it in the moment. In the moment mean anytime the question is asked, orchestrating the insight and getting the answer that you need that's relevant to the enterprise that you're working in, not relevant to the LLM that thinks it's relevant to you. There's one protocol for every tool, and that's Model Context Protocol. This is not new, it's been around since 2024. In 2025, it's been dramatically, it's had a moment of explosion, whether it's, and if you work in sales and marketing, you've seen this. If you work in PR, you haven't really seen it, although there are a few tools that you saw on the map earlier that are launching MCP connections to their data, allowing you to take those MCP connections, and you could go into Claude and just map them to Claude. In your Claude experience, you could start asking questions and get information directly from a Meltwater MCP or an Audience MCP or a GWI MCP. They exist today, and they will orchestrate the intelligence, but what it doesn't know is it doesn't know who you are. But it does provide the power of taking an advanced LLM as the operating system around the analysis you're trying to do, and then connect it to tools that were purpose-built around data that we all need to understand. This orchestrated intelligence is a new operating model for enterprise intelligence. It's moving your team from analyst to intelligence strategist. It's always on, it's always contextual, and it's always connected. Individuals in this room, I would say probably everyone in this room, uses a foundational LLM on a daily basis. The foundational LLM is going to learn about you. It's going to have a level of memory. It's going to understand what you've asked before. It's going to understand your projects. You may have built agents or skills inside the different foundational LLM that you use. It's really hard to scale that to your entire team or to scale it to your entire enterprise. It's really hard to get that to connect to a knowledge base of your entire enterprise. However, if you take, say, a prompt like, how is the product launch landing across earned, owned, and social and AI? You could plug in any brand, you could plug in any topic or any product. What you want to be able to do as a human, you have to go to every one of these sites or platforms. You have to go get the media intelligence. You have to understand the audience that's engaging. You have to understand how is the brand reputation being impacted, or what are the drivers that are impacting the reputation. What's the short form video that I have to manage the gap that was in the media intelligence tool because someone's out scraping TikTok and Instagram, and I need to understand what's happening there. And then what's the LLM perception or the geo optimization? All of these things have to happen technically in 5 different tools for the most part. But in the coming months, they will all happen with just one ask. And the reason why when I presented this topic to Jonah, the idea wasn't, when is this going to happen? It was just a matter of how do we coordinate everyone to have a conversation around this? So in reaching out to a number of vendors in this room, we've started to have this conversation of like, how does your MCP tool work in concert with another MCP tool? How are the skills that we're trying to replicate as humans inside of LLM so that people can move from doing the analysis to move upstream to doing the value around the analysis and trying to help drive strategy in concert with a planner or strategist or a creative research or creative that's trying to come up with new ideas. You understand that, you understand the client better than almost anyone in the room, but you never really have enough time to explain that because you have to move on to the next project. But the idea here is with orchestrated intelligence and using AI, the tools that are gathering this information for purpose are now you will now be able to ask them simultaneously questions. You will be able to do reasoning across them. You'll be able to have RAG-based architecture that's going to learn why you're engaging with them, and as an enterprise, it'll continue to get smarter about why you're interacting with these tools. So the revised architecture to me is in 6 layers. It still starts with the first insight sources. You can go to Claude and you can ask it about social, and you can go to Perplexity that has a social checkbox. It's not going to be the same as a brand intelligence platform, whether you're in this room or not in this room. Those platforms are spending an enormous amount of time and money to gather every mention across as many platforms as legally possible. You also have other tools that are taking that and pivoting it for different reasons, whether it's audience-based, disinformation-based, short-form video. But moving upstream, how do you connect all those in this MCP integration layer? Again, all of you could leave this room today, use Claude or a different MCP server, connect any one of these insight platforms that have an MCP connector and begin using this today. However, you're going to be missing layer 3, and this layer is the context layer. The ontology of what, the skills are how are we going to do this, the connections, where are we going to do this connection, and then the agentic RAG platform, learning who you are so that the intelligence continues to get smarter. You will still have moving up, instead of human is at the top, but we move to specialist agents. These agents are built to connect to the system, so when you ask the question, these agents know what their job is. It could be a PR professional, it could be an intelligence specialist, it could be a creative specialist. These are predefined agents in your system that are working in context with the question you asked, or the brief that you want, or the report that you want, so that all of their perspectives are brought into the report at the time you're building the report. Then you synthesize the analysis that come out of these agents, and then you have human oversight and governance so that the analysis that's done can either be approved or rejected, and then any of your feedback goes back into the context layer, so it continuously learns. Your agent's retrieval data, they format it well, but again, Do they know your brand? The layer that separates connected tools from genuine intelligence is understanding that the brands and competitors you work with, today, you write Booleans for every one of these. In the future, you have to write instructions for every one of these. Why are we competing against this brand? What product within this competitor are we competing in? Are we competing for thought leadership, or are we competing for brand or like product leadership? Messaging framework. This is the hardest thing to do in a narrative or in a brand intelligence platform. If you're looking to track messaging or narratives or proof points, you have to guess what a journalist is going to say in 15 languages. It's impossible. So it's never accurate. But with AI and the use of a bunch of different tools, you can tell the system what your narrative is. It will translate it, and it will also, with a knowledge graph, kind of going back to what Rob was talking about earlier in the context layer, it's seeing that knowledge graph. It's going to, you don't have to guess anymore. The knowledge graph is going to see the connections to other journalists or consumers are talking about this on different platforms. The audience taxonomy. Obviously, this is really important. A lot of people are using these today. You're defining your audience taxonomy, and you're uploading that into the analysis that you're doing, either as an attached file or as a markdown file, explaining who the audience is. Here, you're going to define it. It will continuously evolve, but it'll be connected to the other three areas in the anthology. The KPI is not only what you're looking for success, but what are you trying to impact in the business? Are you trying to drive, again, revenue? Are you trying to drive reputational lift because it will drive revenue? What are the KPIs that you're looking for, and what are the metrics that you're trying to impact in the business? And defining every one of these areas in the anthology need instructions. And the instructions are human written, business justified reasons why you're tracking every one of these. The channels and outputs, these are really important. You could set up a source panel or a priority outlet list in a tool. But these continue to evolve, and they need to continuously, your system needs to continuously learn what channels are important to you. So which ones are you pitching, which ones are you engaging in, but also which ones are talking about you. They could be through LLMs because they're being cited, or they could be through just areas where people are engaging more. Understanding how each one of these outlets or channels, whether it be a YouTube influencer or newsfluencer or an actual journalist, all of them are important, and then all of them have impact. And then the peoples and stakeholders, who are the executives, who are the spokespeople and the key opinion leaders that you're engaging with, influencers, who are the journalists you're engaging with, all the people that are important, they all have a role. And every one of these, you have to think about them in two ways. One, it's important for you to tell the LLM who you are. But two, you have to understand there's a cost associated to this. Today, when you go into an LLM, let's say your ask could cost $5. Between the tokens that you're about to use, when you make that ask, it's going to process that. Your company is getting a bill for that. The more you can tell the LLM up front, the fewer tokens it's going to actually execute. So over the long run, as you spend more money using different LLMs, you have to think about how expensive is it going to be to use the LLM, and the more context you can give it, both from an anthology layer and then moving in next into the skills layer of going beyond every time you write a prompt, you're starting from scratch, to every time you have a skill, it already knows that skill. It knows how it's going to orchestrate that skill. It knows how you want to jump to the different tools. Again, it understands your anthology, and has a history of all the prompts you've already asked. So the cost associated to interacting with these LLMs is really important to think about, because finance at some point is going to be like, why is my Claude bill $5,000 this month? And it's like, oh, well, everyone just started writing prompts. And it's like, well, how can we bring this down? Well, we have to give the LLMs more information so that it costs less every time we make the ask. Within a skill, it's really important to have a reasoning framework. The analytics approach, the analytic approach is encoded. Again, this goes back to the what and why we're doing this. The MCP tool binding, so what are the tools we're going to use, and what are the instructions? A lot of these tools, or every MCP tool, comes with a set of instructions. When you connect to it, it tells you exactly what it will do. They're not really that specific to your business. Why are you engaging with it? What do you want to get out of that tool when you engage with it? These instructions need to be managed in an environment as much as your anthology needs to be managed, so that, again, the LLM knows why it's going into that tool and what it needs to get out of it. The model configuration, not every model is needed. You don't need the biggest model for every ask. So making sure you're orchestrating the use of the models, again, going back to cost, which is going to become your biggest driver of concern inside your business when your CFO comes and asks you, again, why is our innovation costing so much? And then version control, making sure we can track, test, roll back, learn about what we're doing. The difference is between a demo and a production system requires an insane definition of what and why you're interacting with these different tools. And then lastly, in the next area, your best analyst leaves. This is a fear we all have. What does your system remember? Did you just lose all your UK trust baseline norms learned last month? Or do you have any idea what your APAC competitor analysis was a week ago? The person who did all this just left. But in the future, if you are interacting with the system, it will have remembered what was asked, what was gathered, and what was liked about that analysis, what wasn't liked, what needs to be excluded. So this intelligence compounds. As we move through this innovation, it's going to be very hard because people are constantly looking for a magic button. They want it to just work. When I click the button, I can go to ChatGPT and I can ask it about a trip I'm going to take to Italy, and it works immediately. And it's like, great, but we're going to ask it a question that's going to impact tens of millions of dollars of potential revenue. Or $1 million in additional investment. It's going to take time to train the systems. Where'd that come from? I don't know. All right. So how the context layer is composed, you have the ontology, the what, the skills, the how, and the where, the connection. Every one of these are just defined human-written descriptions. Describe what they are based on why they're important to your business. Don't describe them as why they're important to you as an analyst. Why are they important to the business? Why are they important to someone who's asking the question? That's what the LLM wants to know. And if you want to know why this is important, brands that are using MCPs outside of comms, because this works really strong in sales and marketing and other areas of the business, you can see a dramatic reduction in hallucinations because it has domain-grounded context, and an extremely strong reduction in errors with the integration of RAG-based architecture. Over the last couple of months, there's a new paper that comes out every month, but there's another paper that's come out around cognitive RAG, and this is the combination of using RAG-based architecture, knowledge graphs, and just cognitive understanding of who you are as a business. It's in an up-leveled version of RAG, and I've probably used 3 different versions of RAG at this point. But with this new level of context setting with anthology and skills and tool instructions and enhanced RAG environment, the compounding of the confidence score that you get in the tools continues to rise. So if you just use the ChatGPT or a Claude experience out of the box, it's going to be very good. If you start using base MCP orchestration, lets you connect some MCP servers to a cloud experience, your personal cloud account or enterprise cloud account, you're going to get an added level of confidence just based on its ability to do its own reasoning with the tools it's interacting with. But then as you add skills, tools, anthology, and RAG, the confidence score of what you're getting is going to increase. In this last bucket, it will probably never hit 100 because AIs are AIs, but the value of your learning will just compound with every interaction. So this delivers richness, completeness, and consistency, which are 3 things that I've always focused on with my teams, but it's taken time to get there because it would take a week to do a report, or the report is not due for another quarter. We want to be able to do this in the moment. So we want to have speed, we want it to continuous learn, and we want to have insane confidence that what we're sharing doesn't need every line of analysis reviewed. But again, that will take time because humans will have to start with a lot of analysis. And this is where you take analysts. People come to me and they're like, well, what are analyst jobs going to be in the future? And like, they're still going to be analysts. They're just going to be analyzing different things. And they're going to be looking to deliver intelligence in partnership with the creative strategist so that they can work together on the analysis that was just done. They're not handing it off and being like, good luck with the analysis, I have to go to this other report. But when analysts, I'm sure you guys have seen this, but when analysts, planners, strategists, and creatives get to work at the same time on the same project, it's magical. Because everyone comes with a different part of their brain, and they really understand the client. So you're opening up this value that sometimes is locked away with a team that just comes and goes with different projects. And why static orchestration isn't enough. So every time you use a tool, we don't need to reset with every session. And then we have this compounded intelligence that happens over time. I don't know how much time I have left. 0? Okay. I'm just going to go through these last 2 slides quickly. So we have why no one is talking about this. There are a bunch of vendors in this room that have luckily picked up the phone when I've called and have allowed me to start building this solution. There'll be more coming on this. It requires a new discipline, a new way of thinking. And then lastly, we go, I'll just skip ahead. There's a lot. Anyways, so it's intelligence that never stops moving, and people know how to shape it. But together, I feel like everyone at AMEC has to have a voice, and one of the goals would be to have a stronger conversation around this in Ireland when we get there, and maybe have a breakout session where we talk about where everyone is at in this journey. Because 12 months from now, you all will be using some form of MCP orchestration.
So much, Jeff. We really appreciate